"Get out," the voice hissed, low and resonant from the shadows of the cargo hold. Reese froze, his hand inches from the coolant manifold he'd been trying to scavenge. He hadn't heard anyone board the derelict station. He hadn't even heard anyone near the station for weeks. His heart hammered against his ribs, not from fear exactly, more from the raw jolt of unexpected company in a sector where company usually meant death. He slowly turned, his old energy pistol already in his grip, a heavy, familiar weight. The darkness of the hold was absolute in places, broken only by the faint, dusty light filtering in from a ruptured hull panel high above. But in the deepest shadow, a faint, shifting light began to manifest. Not artificial, not a flashlight beam. It was the voice somehow. A low thrumming glow, blues and purples pulsing across. Something. It wasn't shaped like any creature he knew. It was fluid. Like light moving through viscous water, coalescing into a vaguely humanoid shape, but the light was the form. No discernible features yet, just the shifting patterns and the faint, resonant hum that felt as much in his bones as his ears. "This hold is claimed," Reese said, his voice rough, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. His eyes were fixed on the light shape. What the hell was this thing? He'd heard whispers, of course, on the few stations still trading out this far, tales of light weavers or soul shapers, creatures that weren't quite solid. He dismissed them as spacers' myths, fueled by bad synthale and isolation paranoia. The light pulsed brighter, sharper blues now, like a sudden intake of breath, though he saw no mouth. The humming intensified, and the shadows around the light seemed to deepen, drawing heat from the air. Reese felt a chill that wasn't just from the drafty hold. This wasn't just a life form, it felt ancient, or maybe just fundamentally alien in a way that went beyond biology. "Claimed by dust," the resonant voice pulsed again, closer this time. The light form stretched, growing taller, solidifying slightly at the edges, revealing a slender, almost angular form beneath the pulsing glow. Still no details, just the mesmerizing, unsettling play of light. "This place is dead. I bring it. Quiet." "Quiet usually means dead around here too," Reese muttered, keeping the pistol steady. His fingers were tight on the grip. He was a scavenger, not a fighter, but he knew how to survive. And survival out here meant trusting nothing and no one, especially not things made of light and resonant hums. The light form didn't seem hostile, not overtly, but its presence felt invasive, like it was reading him, not with eyes, but with that strange, pulsing light. "You have warmth," the voice stated, the light shifting to softer golds and greens. A probing warmth spread through the chill air, not just temperature, but something else. It felt like being gently scanned, a non-physical touch that prickled his skin. He instinctively flinched back. "Keep your whatever that is to yourself," he snapped. "I'm just here for parts. You want the dust, you can have it. Just let me finish my work." The light form didn't respond with words. Instead, it moved. Not walking, but flowing across the deck plating, silent and unnervingly fast. It solidified further as it approached, and now, incredibly, he could see details within the light. Not features like eyes or a nose, but intricate glowing patterns that seemed to shift and flow beneath a translucent, shimmering surface. There were hints of structure, shoulders, a torso, the suggestion of limbs, all defined by the intensity and color of the internal light. And radiating from it, a complex series of resonant frequencies that vibrated in the air and resonated directly in his inner ear, carrying information beyond spoken words. He caught flickers of feeling, intention, curiosity, a strange melancholy, and that unnerving sense of probing warmth. The warmth intensified as the form stopped just a few feet away, close enough that the radiant heat was now distinctly physical, chasing away the chill of the hold. He could feel it on his face, his hands, through the worn fabric of his suit. It was too close. Intimately, physically too close for a stranger, let alone a light being. His breath hitched. The pistol felt heavier now, but shooting something made of light felt absurd. "Your warmth." The resonant hum deepened, becoming softer, more inquisitive. The light shifted to deep, inviting blues and violets, the patterns within slowing, swirling like nebulae. "It is a signature, unique here." A tendril of light thicker and brighter than the rest extended tentatively towards him. It wasn't an arm, not really, but it moved with purpose like a hand reaching out. He recoiled, stumbling back against a stack of rusted plating. "Don't," he warned, his voice tight. His eyes were locked on that reaching light. It felt like standing too close to a powerful current, vibrating with unseen energy. The air felt charged, thick with unspoken information. He realized he was trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the sheer intensity of this entity's presence. It wasn't just looking at him. It felt like it was looking through him, seeing things he kept hidden even from himself. The sense of being physically, sensually appraised by this non-physical entity was profoundly unnerving, yet compelling. The light pulsed slowly, patiently, the resonant hum a question without words. It was waiting. For him to lower the gun, to reach back, to scream and run. He didn't know. All he knew was the space between them felt charged, humming with an alien potential he couldn't begin to understand but which resonated deeply within him. The only thing he was certain of was that, whatever this was, it wasn't leaving, and he was now caught in its strange, silent gaze. Reese didn't lower the pistol. He held it steady, his knuckles white. The light being, if that's what it was, retracted the probing tendril slowly, the blues and violets deepening into a sorrowful indigo. The resonant hum shifted too, a lower, mournful tone that echoed the vast emptiness of space outside the hull. It felt like disappointment, raw and pure, radiating from a being that shouldn't have emotions, not like he understood them. "You fear touch," the resonant voice vibrated through the air, though the indigo light remained steady, no longer probing. "Or fear connection." Reese scoffed, a short, sharp sound that did little to dispel the tension. "I fear getting vaporized by something I don't understand. Touch isn't exactly high on my list of priorities with a potential alien weapon." The indigo light pulsed slightly like a sigh. "Weapon? No, I am Lyra. I seek refuge. This station is quiet, safe." "Safe? This place is falling apart," Reese countered, glancing up at the groaning structure. "And it's crawling with scavengers eventually, or worse. Corporate security patrols this sector sometimes. They snag anything that looks valuable." Lyra's light pulsed with a sudden, sharper blue like a flash of alarm. "Security, they seek others of my kind, they take them." The indigo returned, heavier this time. "They take their light." Reese felt a flicker of something. Pity, reluctant understanding. He'd seen what the corporations did. Strip mining planets, enslaving populations, dissecting anything they couldn't immediately understand for profit. The idea of taking light from something like Lyra, it sounded horrific. Still, he wasn't about to get involved. His first rule was survive alone. Relying on others, especially something as strange and vulnerable sounding as Lyra, was a fast track to getting caught or killed. "Look, Lyra," he said, trying to keep his voice even, "I don't know what you are or why they're hunting you, but I'm not getting mixed up in it. I'm just passing through, grabbing what I can, then I'm gone." Her light didn't pulse this time but seemed to dim slightly, losing some of its internal vibrancy. The resonant hum became barely audible. "You would abandon me, alone in the quiet." Her quiet sounded a lot like his dead. He felt a prickle of discomfort. He was alone too, had been for years by choice, but her aloneness felt different, more profound, tied to the very nature of her being. He almost felt guilty, almost. "It's just how things are," he said gruffly. "Everyone's alone out here. You look out for yourself, that's it." "But, my light, it resonates with yours," Lyra said, her voice gaining a faint, questioning lilt. The indigo light brightened slightly, shifting towards warmer greens at the edges. "I feel it. A harmony." Reese frowned. "Resonates? Harmony? What are you talking about?" He didn't feel any harmony. He felt tension, confusion, and a growing awareness of her strange presence that was starting to override his instinct to bolt. He felt the warmth she radiated, more distinctly now. It wasn't just heat. It felt like a low-frequency vibration that hummed against his skin, a soothing counterpoint to the dull ache he always carried beneath his ribs. "Your core," Lyra explained, the green light swirling. "Beneath the hard shell, it has a frequency, Color, mind responds. His core, his color, this was getting weirder by the second. Are you saying you can feel my emotions? He asked, suspicion lacing his tone. Lyra's light pulsed quickly like a nod. Bright, inquisitive yellows and greens danced within her form. Yes, and you feel my resonance, my need. He definitely felt something. An odd pull, a strange sense of being seen in a way that bypassed words and defenses. It was unsettling but also compelling. He hadn't felt anything this intense in years. He lowered the pistol slightly, not putting it away but relaxing his grip. So you're feeling, what exactly? He challenged, curious despite himself. Lyra's light softened again, returning to the deep indigo but with flecks of shimmering gold now. The resonant hum became a soft thrum, almost a purr. The quiet, within you but beneath it, a deep buried warmth, like dying embers, and a hunger not for food, for connection. I understand hunger. He stared at her, the light being. How could she see that? He buried that part of himself so deep, no one ever saw it. He hadn't even admitted it to himself in a long time. The directness, the utter lack of pretense in her reading of him was like a physical blow. It left him momentarily breathless. That's impossible, he finally managed, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra's light pulsed gently. Is it, or do you just refuse to feel it? The challenge hung in the air, sharp and personal. The space between them was no longer just physically close. It was thick with emotional and sensory tension. He felt exposed, seen by this utterly alien being in a way that both terrified and strangely, deeply, resonated with the part of him he kept locked away. The air hummed with her light, her presence, and the unsettling truth of her words. He stood there, caught in the glow, his hand still on the pistol, unsure whether to run or something else entirely. Rhys didn't run. He couldn't. The air around Lyra thrummed with a sensory intensity that held him captive. The indigo light with its gold flecks pulsed, radiating that strange warmth and the low, resonant hum that felt woven into the structure of reality itself. He felt caught in a web of alien sensation, fascinating and terrifying. Why are they hunting you? He asked, the question escaping before he could stop it. It was a sign he was getting involved, a line he shouldn't cross. But her words about his own inner state, about his hunger, had cracked something open in him. Lyra's light shifted, blues and greens swirling rapidly, patterns within her form flashing like complex code. It felt like information being conveyed, but not in words he could decipher. The resonant hum became sharp, dissonant, carrying a feeling of distress and urgency. My kind, we are keepers, she finally said, her voice strained, the light dimming slightly as if in pain. Of the resonance, the source of our light, it can mend things, bring life, or be twisted. They want to twist it, use it. She extended that tendril of light again, this time towards a small, intricate object she held cupped within her luminous form. It was dark, irregular, almost like a shard of compressed night, pulsing with a faint, internal rhythm that mirrored her own resonant hum, though much fainter. This is part of the resonance, she pulsed, the indigo deepening further. A vessel, if it falls into their hands, they will drain it, drain us. Rhys squinted, trying to make out details of the object. It looked utterly unremarkable, yet the way she held it, the distress radiating from her light, it was clearly everything to her. And you think hiding out here is going to protect it? This place is a beacon for trouble. Lyra's light shifted back to softer blues and violets, a weary acceptance entering the hum. I was separated, my protectors fell, I fled this place. It is old, faded resonance here, like an echo, I hoped to hide, recharge. Recharge? Was her light some kind of energy she needed to replenish? The concept was so alien. He studied her, the way the light flowed and pulsed, how it seemed to be her. He tried to imagine living like that, as pure energy and resonance, vulnerable to predators who wanted to take your light. It was a level of existential horror he hadn't considered. He hesitated. His instincts screamed at him to leave, to cut his losses and get out before her problems became his. But then he looked at the way her light seemed to hold that dark shard, the fragile, desperate energy of her presence in this cold, dead place, and he heard her words about his own hunger, the truth of them ringing in his chest. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't cut out for being alone forever. "Okay," he said, the single word heavy with unexpected weight. Lyra's light flared, a sudden burst of vibrant gold and emerald green, and the resonant hum lifted, becoming sharp and joyous. It felt like a physical shockwave of relief washing over him. "Okay," he repeated, holding up a hand. "Hold on, I'm not saying I'm signing up to fight your war, but hiding alone out here probably isn't the best plan. This station's got blind spots the patrols know about. We need a better place." Lyra flowed closer, her light form swirling with excitement. The gold and emerald colors danced wildly. "A better place, you know one." "Maybe," Rhys said, rubbing the back of his neck. His mind raced. He knew a few places. Forgotten caches, deep space debris fields, maybe even a derelict vessel he'd scouted out ages ago, supposedly empty but with functional core systems. It was risky, it meant trusting her, and it meant staying. He swallowed hard. "There's an old transport, graveyard sector near the Veil Nebula. Should be quiet. If its life support is still running, it's got power I can tap. And it's big enough to get lost in." Lyra flowed right up to him, closer than she had been before. The vibrant light pulsed around him, bathing him in warmth and that strange, comforting resonance. He felt the vibration against his skin, through his clothes, not just heat but a complex, intricate energy signature. It was overwhelming, intimate. He could feel the frantic joy radiating from her, the hope. Her form seemed to solidify further, shimmering like liquid light, close enough that he could almost reach out and touch her. It was exhilarating and terrifying, this potent, alien closeness. His pistol was forgotten. His heart pounded, not just from the surprise earlier, but from the sheer sensory overload of her proximity. This was a different kind of danger, a different kind of pull, and he felt himself irrevocably drawn into its strange, luminous center. Agreeing to help Lyra felt like stepping off a cliff. Rhys spent the next few hours working frantically, pulling the parts he needed from the cargo hold while Lyra flowed through the shadows, her light a watchful, silent presence. She occasionally pulsed questions about the station's structure, the patrols he'd mentioned, the nature of his work. He answered tersely, focused on the task, acutely aware of her unique form moving around him. When her light shifted, it wasn't just a visual change. It carried a corresponding shift in the resonant hum, in the temperature of the air around her, in the subtle frequencies that vibrated against his skin. He was constantly aware of her, of the complex sensory symphony she emitted. Packing up his minimal gear felt different now. He wasn't just prepping to leave alone, he was prepping to leave with her. The responsibility was a heavy weight he hadn't carried in a long time. He found himself thinking about the old transport in the graveyard sector, not just as a hiding place, but as a potential refuge for two. "All right," he said, finally securing his last pack. "Let's go. My ship's docked on the exterior hull, port side, level 4. Lyra flowed out of the shadows, her light a steady, reassuring indigo now. The resonant hum was calm, attentive. "Your ship, it is small." "Small but fast," Rhys replied, leading the way towards the nearest airlock. "And inconspicuous. That's how you survive out here." They moved through the silent corridors of the derelict station. Lyra didn't walk, she flowed, gliding a few inches above the deck plating, her light illuminating their path with an ethereal glow. He glanced back at her occasionally, fascinated by the way her form shifted and flowed, solidifying or becoming more diffuse depending on what? Her mood. The environment. He couldn't tell. He was just beginning to learn her strange language of light and resonance. Entering the airlock felt cramped with her inside. Her light filled the small space, intense and overwhelming. He felt bathed in her resonant energy, the warmth more pronounced now, almost like a physical embrace. He fumbled with the airlock controls, his fingers slightly clumsy under the pressure of her proximity. "You are tense," Lyra pulsed softly, the indigo light swirling with soft greens. The resonant hum became a low, soothing vibration. Is the compression uncomfortable? No, it's fine, Reese lied, pushing the inner hatch open. He just wasn't used to having anyone this close, especially not someone who felt like a walking, talking energy field. His ship, the Stardust, was a battered old single-seater scout vessel, modified for scavenging and speed. It was cramped, functional, and smelled faintly of ozone and recycled air. He'd never brought anyone aboard before. Lyra paused at the entrance to the cockpit, her light pulsing with curiosity. This is your shell. It's my ship, Reese corrected, climbing into the pilot's seat. My home for now. He gestured to the co-pilot's seat, currently piled high with his scavenged parts. You'll have to make space, or can you sit? Lyra's light shimmered and her form seemed to condense, the outer edges hardening slightly. The glowing patterns within slowed, becoming more defined. She flowed onto the co-pilot's seat, settling her form onto the worn fabric. It looked surreal, a being of pure light sitting in a physical seat. I can emulate form, she pulsed, the indigo light steady. To interact with the physical, it is taxing, drains my light. Right, Reese said, clearing the parts and strapping himself in. Well, try not to get too solid then. We've got a trip ahead of us. He started the ship's engines, the old systems groaning to life. The cockpit lights flickered, casting harsh shadows that warred with Lyra's softer glow. He engaged the thrusters, easing the Stardust away from the station hull. As they moved into open space, Lyra's light pulsed brighter, blues and purples swirling with fascination. The stars, she pulsed, a note of wonder in her voice. So many lights, so much resonance. Reese glanced over at her. In the dim cockpit, her luminous form was mesmerizing. He could see the intricate patterns of light shifting and flowing beneath her translucent surface, a silent, living display of alien energy. The resonant hum filled the small space, a constant, low thrum that vibrated in his chest, calming something he hadn't realized was anxious. He felt a strange sense of peace settle over him, simply being in her presence, bathed in her light and resonance. It was profoundly intimate, sitting so close to a being so utterly alien, yet feeling this unexpected sense of connection. The quiet hum of her being in the seat beside him was a stark contrast to the crushing silence of space outside, and for the first time in a long time, Reese didn't feel entirely alone. The stars stretched out before them, a canvas of potential, and he was flying into it with a creature made of light, his carefully constructed solitude shattered by a single, impossible encounter. The flight to the graveyard sector was long and mostly silent, filled only by the low thrum of the ship's engines and the subtler, constant hum of Lyra's presence beside him. She remained in her emulated form on the co-pilot's seat, her light a soft, steady presence in the dim cockpit. He watched her sometimes, stealing glances when he thought she wasn't aware. Her light wasn't static. It constantly shifted in subtle ways, the colors deepening or brightening, the internal patterns flowing like slow currents. He was beginning to associate certain shifts with feelings. A brighter, sharper pulse meant curiosity. A softer, warmer glow meant comfort or perhaps contemplation. It was a slow, non-verbal dialogue unfolding between them, one he was only just beginning to understand. Lyra didn't ask many questions about his past, and he didn't offer any. He told her about the ship systems, the navigation, the dangers of the sector, practical things. She listened, her light attentive, occasionally responding with a resonant hum that felt like acknowledgement or understanding. It was a strange companionship, built not on shared history or verbal exchange, but on immediate presence and that inexplicable resonance she felt between them. As they neared the graveyard sector, a vast field of derelict ships and debris floating in the faint glow of the Veil Nebula, Reese pointed ahead. There it is, the Argus. The Argus was a colossal transport vessel, a relic from a long-dead corporate mining operation. It floated silent and dark amidst the debris, its hull scarred and breached in multiple places. From the outside, it looked like a tomb. It is, Large, Lyra pulsed, her light pulsing with apprehension, sharp blues flickering at the edges. Big enough to hide in, Reese said, navigating carefully through the field of wrecks. Power should still be routed to the main deck and maybe some life support. We'll need to find a secure section. He brought the Stardust in for a rough docking on the Argus's auxiliary port. The connection sequence was manual and tricky, requiring him to leave the cockpit. "Stay here," he told Lyra. "I'll check the airlock and the main corridors, make sure it's clear." Lyra's light flared, a sudden burst of anxious yellow. "Alone, you will leave me." He paused, hand on the hatch release. He hadn't considered that, leaving her in the small ship while he explored the potentially vast, dangerous interior of the Argus felt wrong. "It's just for a little while," he said, trying to sound reassuring. But the quiet outside, Lyra pulsed, her light dimming slightly. And the disconnection, it is painful. Disconnection, he hadn't thought of it like that. To her, presence wasn't just visual, it was sensory resonant. Being alone meant a lack of that resonant connection. He remembered the feeling of her warmth, her hum, how it eased something in him. Maybe it was reciprocal. "Okay," he sighed. "Okay, come with me, but stay close. This place is old and unstable, and I need you to stay. Quiet, no bright lights, no loud humming. We don't know what might be lurking in here." Lyra's light brightened instantly, a wave of relief washing over him through her resonance. She solidified her form again and flowed out of the co-pilot's seat, her light dimming to a low, steady indigo, just enough to see by. The airlock cycled with a groan of old machinery. The air inside the Argus was stale, cold, and carried the metallic tang of decay. Reese moved cautiously, pistol ready, his footsteps echoing in the silent corridor. Lyra flowed beside him, a silent shadow of light. The only sounds were his own breathing and the faint, constant hum of her presence, barely audible now, a low thrum that only he seemed to perceive. They moved deeper into the ship. Lights were out, systems dead. The corridors were dark, vast, and unsettling. He relied on his suit lamp and Lyra's dim glow. The light from her form cast strange, elongated shadows that danced with every subtle shift in her shape or color. He felt her presence intensely beside him, a constant, non-verbal anchor in the oppressive silence. They found a viable section eventually, deep within the ship's core, a series of connected labs and living quarters that seemed relatively intact. Miraculously, some auxiliary power was still rooted here, enough for basic lighting and maybe primitive life support. "Okay," Reese said, dropping his pack in a central lab space. "This looks like it could work. We can seal off this section, try to reroute more power." Lyra flowed into the lab, her light brightening cautiously as she surveyed the space. Blues and greens pulsed with evaluation. "It is contained, dead resonance, but stable." "Stable is good," Reese said, starting to unload his tools. "We need to rig defenses, figure out the power grid. It'll take time." He worked, checking panels, assessing structural integrity, Lyra observing him, her light steady. The silence between them was different now, not tense but companionable, filled with the low thrum of shared space and purpose. He felt the warmth of her light on his back as he worked, a comforting weight he was quickly becoming accustomed to. It was strange how quickly the utterly alien could become familiar. He glanced back at her, catching her light form in the dim lab. She pulsed a soft, gentle green, and the resonant hum deepened, a note of gratitude. It was becoming easier to read her. He felt a warmth spread through his chest, independent of hers. Maybe her reading wasn't just one way. Maybe, just maybe, he was starting to understand her too. The vast, silent ship felt a little less dead with her light moving within it. Reese spent the next few days working on the Argus. He sealed off the section they were in, rerouted power from the auxiliary core, and even managed to jury-rig a basic atmospheric processor. The labs became their base, dusty and derelict, but functional. Lyra was an unexpectedly silent but helpful presence. She could flow through tight spaces he couldn't reach, her light illuminating hidden conduits or structural weaknesses. She learned quickly, observing his actions with intense focus, her light pulsing with understanding. Their communication remained a mix of his sparse words and her light-hand resonance language. He'd point to a power conduit and say, "Need to reroute power from here." And her light would pulse with sharp, understanding blues and greens, followed by a low, resonant hum that felt like affirmative. When he was tired or frustrated, his movements stiff, she would flow closer, her light softening to a warm gold and the hum becoming a deep, soothing vibration that eased the tension in his muscles. It was a level of non-verbal intimacy he'd never experienced, a constant attunement to each other's state through pure sensory input. One evening, after a particularly frustrating day trying to repair a defunct comm system, Reese slumped against a lab console, exhausted. Lyra flowed beside him, her light a gentle indigo. The resonant hum was low, contemplative. "You are weary," she pulsed, the indigo swirling with soft gold. "Your light dims." Reese managed a tired smile. "Yeah, this old rust bucket is fighting me every step of the way." Lyra solidified her form slightly, the shimmering surface becoming more defined. She reached out that tendril of light again, hesitantly this time, stopping just inches from his arm. The warmth radiating from it was potent, inviting. "Let me resonate with you," she pulsed softly. "Share my light, it may ease the weariness." Reese looked at the shimmering tendril, the intricate patterns flowing within it. It was an invitation, a physical extension of her non-physical being. His instinct was still to recoil, to protect himself from the alien. But he was tired, aching, and her presence had become such a strange comfort. And her words about sharing light, easing weariness. It sounded like a fundamental act of connection for her kind. He slowly reached out his hand. His fingers met the shimmering surface of the light tendril. It wasn't like touching flesh or metal. It felt like touching warm, vibrating water but without the wetness. Pure energy. A jolt ran up his arm, not pain but an intense, vibrant sensation. It felt like a complex chord being struck deep within his body, resonating with his bones, his blood, his very being. Lyra's light flared, brilliant gold and deep violet, and the resonant hum surged, filling the lab with an almost overwhelming wave of energy. He felt his weariness drain away, replaced by a buzzing energy, a sense of heightened awareness, and something else, a profound sense of presence, hers. It felt like their cores, as she called them, were touching, merging. He felt overwhelmed by sensations, not just the buzzing energy and warmth, but also fleeting glimpses of her inner world. Not thoughts or images he could process, but pure feeling, the vastness of space, the sorrow of loss, the fierce protectiveness she felt for the dark shard, the quiet hope she held, and underlying it all, a deep, luminous calm. And her awareness of him. Not just the surface weariness, but the layers beneath, his fear of being hurt again, his stubborn independence, the buried ache of loneliness she'd sensed before. It was terrifyingly intimate, being seen and felt on such a fundamental level. He gasped, pulling his hand back instinctively. The connection broke. Lyra's light softened, returning to a gentle indigo, the resonant hum dropping to a low thrum. "Too much," she pulsed, her voice quiet, tinged with concern. Reese leaned back against the console, breathing hard. His hand tingled where he had touched her. What was that?" "Resonance," she pulsed simply. "Sharing, when our cores touch, our light mingles. It is profound, necessary for my kind to ground ourselves, to share strength." She hesitated, her light pulsing uncertainly. "I did not mean to overwhelm you." "No, it's okay," he said, though his heart was still racing. "Just a lot you can feel, all that, all the time." Lyra's light shimmered with a hint of melancholy. "Only when connected, but the echoes remain of others' light. That is why the quiet here is painful. There is no resonance, only my own fading light." He looked at her, this being made of light and feeling, who experienced the universe through resonance and disconnection. And he thought about himself, walled off, disconnected by choice, his own inner light carefully banked down to embers. The shared touch, however brief, had revealed something profound. She wasn't just offering him comfort. She was offering a fundamental mode of being, a way to connect that bypassed all his usual defenses. It was terrifying, the level of vulnerability it required. But it was also the most real he had felt in years. The space between them, once filled with his apprehension, now hummed with the lingering echo of their mingled light, a promise and a challenge Reese didn't know if he was ready to accept. The days blurred into a routine. Reese worked on the ship systems, slowly bringing more of the Argus back to life. Lyra helped, her strange abilities proving invaluable. She could navigate the ship's collapsed sections, sense fluctuations in the power grid, and her resonant hum could even subtly affect old circuits, coaxing power where it shouldn't flow. He started calling her Lyra, just the name, simple and direct, and she responded to it, her light pulsing with recognition whenever he spoke it. Their relationship deepened in the quiet intimacy of the derelict ship. It wasn't based on conversations about their pasts. They still skirted around those, sensing the pain buried beneath the surface. It was based on shared presence, on the subtle communication of light and resonance, on the growing understanding of each other's fundamental nature. He learned her moods through the shifts in her light, felt her frustrations when circuits wouldn't respond through the sharp, dissonant hums, shared her quiet triumphs through bursts of vibrant gold. And she simply was with him, a constant, warm, resonating presence that slowly, incrementally, chipped away at the walls he'd built around himself. He found himself talking to her more, not just about the repairs, but about small, insignificant things. The taste of his recycled nutrient paste, the ache in his back, the strange shapes he saw in the nebula's glow outside the reinforced viewports. She listened, her light steady, responding with soft pulses and gentle hums that made him feel heard in a way he hadn't been in years. He even told her about the name Stardust for his ship, how his mother used to tell him everyone was made of stardust. Lyra's light had shifted to a shimmering, deep violet, the hum a low, beautiful chord that felt like pure understanding. The physical intimacy was still tentative, limited to accidental brushes in the cramped corridors or the occasional deliberate touch of his hand to her shimmering form during a shared moment of success or frustration. Each touch was a jolt, a surge of that strange, vibrant energy, a brief merging of their cores that left him buzzing for hours. It was addictive, this direct, unfiltered connection. One cycle, while Reese was struggling with a particularly stubborn bulkhead, Lyra flowed close, her light a soft, encouraging green. "It resists," she pulsed, the resonant hum tight with sympathy. "Yeah, well, join the club," Reese grumbled, wrestling with a corroded bolt. Lyra solidified her form more than usual, the shimmering surface gaining substance. She reached out, not with a tendril but with her entire hand, placing it directly over his, which was still gripping the wrench. Her light flared, a soft, steady warmth flowing into his hand. The resonant hum deepened, not the sharp, overwhelming surge of their first touch, but a slow, deliberate merging. He felt the familiar buzz, the jolt of energy, but this time it was different. It was calmer, more focused. He felt Lyra's intention flow into him, not just general support but a directed energy, a gentle push against the stubborn metal. And with it came a wave of quiet strength, a sense of shared purpose that flowed from her light into his physical form. He gritted his teeth and pulled on the wrench. The bolt groaned, then slowly, agonizingly turned. It wasn't just his strength, it felt like their strength combined in that strange, silent connection. When the bolt finally gave way, he slumped back against the bulkhead, panting. Lyra withdrew her hand, her light a triumphant gold. "We did it," he murmured, looking at the loosened bolt, then at her. Lyra's light pulsed rapidly, a visual echo of laughter, vibrant greens and yellows dancing within her form. The resonant hum was joyful, triumphant. She flowed closer, her light softening, swirling with deep blues and purples. The hum dropped to a lower frequency, intimate, inviting. He looked at her, shimmering in the dim light of the corridor, her form solidified, almost solid to his eyes. Her face, defined only by the shifting patterns of light, seemed to convey an expression of intense, focused emotion. He felt the pull strong and undeniable. The shared struggle, the shared victory, the constant intimacy of her presence. It had led them here, to a moment thick with unspoken need. "Lyra," he said, his voice husky. Her light pulsed slowly, deep indigo now, resonant with a profound stillness. The hum was a single, sustained note, vibrating deep in his core. She reached out again, her hand of shimmering light hovering inches from his face. He didn't flinch this time. He leaned into it. Her light hand gently cupped his cheek. The warmth was intense, flooding his face, spreading through his body. It wasn't just warmth. It was a wave of pure, focused sensation, overwhelming and intoxicating. The resonant hum surged, vibrating through his skull, filling his mind not with sound but with feeling. He felt her presence wash over him, through him acceptance, curiosity, a deep, yearning need that mirrored his own buried hunger. Her light intensified, swirling, merging with his perception. He felt himself losing awareness of anything but her light, her resonance, her touch. This was intimacy on a level he couldn't have imagined, a merging of being that felt both impossibly alien and profoundly, urgently right. He closed his eyes, letting himself drown in the sensory storm of her light. The world shrank to the space between them, filled with the overwhelming sensation of Lyra's touch and the resonant hum of her being. Her light hand pulsed against his cheek, pouring warmth and energy into him, a vibrant exchange that felt less like physical contact and more like their very essences were mingling. He felt a wave of sensory input that bypassed his normal senses, not images, but pure feeling states, flowing from her to him. He felt her curiosity, sharp and boundless, her deep connection to the vastness of the nebula outside, her profound loneliness, and the fierce, protective love she held for the dark shard, the vessel of the resonance. And mixed with it all, the overwhelming, visceral sense of him that she was absorbing, the shape of his fatigue, the rough edges of his cynicism, the surprising depth of the vulnerability beneath, and the rising tide of his need for connection. It was too much, beautiful, overwhelming, terrifying. His body, grounded in physical limits, couldn't process the sheer volume of pure sensation and emotion flowing from a being made of light. His mind reeled. A knot of panic tightened in his chest. This was too fast, too deep, too alien. He pulled away sharply, breaking the contact. His hand went instinctively to his face, where her light had touched him. The spot still burned with residual energy, tingling with the ghost of her presence. His heart was pounding, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Lyra's light contracted instantly, dimming, the vibrant gold and violet replaced by a deep, uncertain indigo. The resonant hum dropped, becoming a low, mournful note that echoed his own abrupt withdrawal. "Reese," she pulsed, her voice quiet, laced with confusion and hurt. Her light flickered unsteadily. He couldn't look at her. He stared at the scuffed deck plating, trying to regain control of his breathing, of himself. I can't. Lyra, that's too much. I'm sorry, I'm not built for that." His words sounded harsh, rejecting. He knew they did, but he felt raw, exposed, as if she had reached into his chest and squeezed his heart with her light. He wasn't like her. He was solid, physical, emotionally guarded. This direct, unfiltered connection, this merging of cores, it stripped away everything he used to protect himself. Lyra's light pulsed, a sharp, painful blue. The resonant hum spiked with distress. "You reject me, my light." "No, no, it's not you," he said quickly, finally looking up at her. Her light form seemed to waver, less substantial than before, her colors muted. The visual representation of her pain was heartbreaking. "It's just, I'm different, I can't handle that much feeling, not like that, not all at once." Lyra flowed back, putting distance between them. Her light remained a wounded indigo, the hum a low lament. "So, our resonance, it is not harmony, it is pain for you." "No, it's not pain," he insisted, frustrated by his inability to explain, by the fundamental gulf between them. "It's just, Intense, overwhelming. I'm not used to being felt like that, being seen like that. He gestured vaguely at himself. I'm solid, I have walls, you just flowed right through them. Her light pulsed with a flicker of understanding, but the hurt remained, a deep ache radiating from her form. Walls, she pulsed softly, to protect the dying embers. You do not wish them to flare. Not like that, he repeated, running a hand through his hair. Not consumed, not lost in it. He was trying to articulate something he barely understood himself, the fear of being swallowed whole by her intensity, by the alienness of her connection. The silence stretched between them, thick with misunderstanding and bruised feelings. Lyra's light stayed muted, distant. The vibrant intimacy of moments before was gone, replaced by a chilling emotional distance. He had hurt her, he knew. He had recoiled from the deepest part of her nature, from the way she knew how to connect. And the silence that followed, the lack of her resonant hum filling the space between them, felt colder and more isolating than any silence he had experienced alone on this derelict ship. He had pushed her away, and the emptiness her withdrawal left behind was a stark reminder of just how accustomed he had become to her light, her warmth, her presence. He wanted to reach out to explain, but he didn't know how, didn't know if she could understand his kind of vulnerability, his kind of fear. The tension in the air was thick, not physical, but a raw, emotional divide that felt wider than the void outside the hull. The emotional distance hung heavy in the air for the rest of that cycle. Lyra retreated to a far corner of the lab, her light dimmed to a faint, almost imperceptible glow. The resonant hum was gone entirely, replaced by a silence that felt louder than any noise. Rhys worked mechanically on the Argus's systems, the tasks he'd found a strange comfort in now feeling like meaningless distractions. He felt her absence acutely, the lack of her light, her warmth, her hum. The ship felt dead again, empty and cold. He tried to talk to her, but his words felt clumsy, inadequate. Lyra, look, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I just reacted. Her light didn't respond. It remained a faint, distant pinpoint in the corner. It was like she had withdrawn into herself, closed off the part of her that radiated light and resonance, the part that connected. And it was his fault. The next cycle was the same. Rhys woke in the small sleeping cot he'd rigged up, feeling the familiar ache in his muscles and a new, sharper ache in his chest. He saw Lyra still in the corner, her light barely visible. He spent the morning scavenging parts from other sections, leaving her alone. He hoped the space would help, would give her time, but the silence of the ship felt crushing without her. He returned in the late afternoon, his pack heavy, his spirits low. He entered the lab and stopped short. Lyra was still in the corner, but her light was no longer just a faint glow. It was pulsing with a frantic, sharp blue like a siren. And the resonant hum was back, a high-pitched, dissonant shriek that set his teeth on edge. "Lyra, what's wrong?" he asked, dropping his pack and grabbing his pistol. Her light pulsed more frantically, the shriek intensifying. She flowed towards the reinforced viewports, pointing with a shaking, solidified hand of light. "They are here, the security. They have found the echo." Rhys rushed to the viewport, shielding his eyes against the faint light of the nebula. At first, he saw nothing but the usual debris field. Then he spotted it, a sleek, black vessel, unmistakably corporate security. It was moving slowly, deliberately, weaving through the wrecks. Too close. "How did they find us?" he muttered, scanning the area frantically. Lyra flowed back to the center of the lab, her light flickering with distress. She held the dark shard, the vessel of the resonance, tightly within her glowing form. The echo of my light, seeking resonance. Perhaps it was detected by their capture technology. His heart sank. He had pushed her away, broken their connection, and in her need for resonance, for some form of connection in the isolating silence, she had inadvertently put them both in danger. The irony was a bitter taste in his mouth. Okay, don't panic," he said, trying to keep his voice steady though his own pulse was racing. "We sealed this section. They won't be able to just walk in, but they'll have external cutting gear. We need to move." Lyra's light pulsed with uncertainty. Move where they are, outside. Deeper into the ship, Reese said, his mind racing. There's a section with old escape pods. Not sure if they're functional, but maybe we can use them to get clear. Or just hide there. It's heavily shielded. He grabbed his essentials, a pistol, survival kit, tool pack. Lyra hovered beside him, her light still flickering with panic, the resonant hum a low, fearful thrum. Can you stay quiet?" he asked, meeting her light gaze. "Dim your light, stop the hum, it might make it harder for them to track us." Lyra's light shifted, a struggle visible within her form. Deep indigo battled with frantic blue. "It is difficult, my fear resonates." "I know," he said, reaching out and taking her shimmering hand. It was still solidified, cool energy against his skin. He felt her frantic fear surge through their touch, a wave of pure terror. He squeezed her hand, trying to ground her, to share some of his own hard-won calm. "Breathe, Lyra, or hum quietly. Whatever you need to do, just try to suppress the bright light, for both our sakes." He held her hand for a moment longer, letting the connection, however brief, flow between them. Her fear was immense, palpable, but beneath it, he felt a flicker of trust return, a desperate reliance on him. He had hurt her, but in the face of external danger, she still turned to him. "Okay," he said, pulling her gently towards the inner corridor. "Let's go, and stay close, very close." Lyra's light dimmed slightly, the frantic blue softening to a deep, shadowed indigo. The resonant hum quieted to a low, almost silent vibration that only he could feel, a constant, reassuring pressure against his senses as they moved into the dark, silent heart of the Argus, pursued by an enemy that hunted beings of light. The brief moment of shared touch, of renewed connection in the face of terror, had bridged the distance between them, at least for now. Moving deeper into the Argus was treacherous. The old ship groaned around them, bulkheads sometimes shifting or sagging under the strain of long neglect. Reese navigated by the glow of his suit lamp and Lyra's barely their light, a faint indigo guide in the oppressive darkness. She flowed beside him, a constant, silent presence, her low, resonant hum a steady vibration against his side. He kept his hand on her solidified light hand, a tactile connection that grounded them both in the terrifying silence. He felt her fear through the touch, a tremor in her shimmering form, but also a fierce determination radiating from the core of her light. They heard the sounds of the security detail sooner than he expected, a high-pitched whine of cutting lasers, echoing strangely through the ship's structure. They were breaching the section they'd just left. They were fast. "They're in," Reese whispered, quickening his pace. "We need to move." Lyra's light pulsed with renewed urgency, the indigo darkening. The resonant hum tightened, a thread of pure anxiety. They ducked and weaved through the labyrinthine corridors, avoiding debris piles and gaping holes in the decks. Reese led the way, relying on his knowledge of the ship's layout, Lyra a silent, responsive shadow beside him. He could hear the sounds of the security team getting closer, heavy boots, crackling comms, the hum of their energy weapons. They reached the escape pod bay. It was a large, cavernous space, lined with dark, dormant pods. The air here was even colder, stagnant. "Okay," Reese panted, scanning the pods. "Let's see if any of these are even remotely functional." Lyra released his hand, flowing towards the nearest pod. Her light, still dimmed, flowed over the hull, probing. "No resonance," she pulsed softly. "Dead." She moved to the next and the next. Each time her light remained a dull indigo, signifying no connection, no life. Despair began to creep in. There were dozens of pods, but if none of them had any functional power core, they were trapped. The sounds of the security team were louder now, just a few corridors away. They were methodical, searching every section. "They're close," Reese said, pulling out his pistol. He positioned himself near the entrance to the bay, ready to defend it. But he knew he couldn't hold them off for long, not against a fully armed security squad. Lyra flowed back to him, her light pulsing with desperation. "Reese, they are coming, I feel there. Disruption there, emptiness. They will take the resonance. She held up the dark shard, her light form trembling. He looked at her fear, at the sacred object she held. He saw the being of pure light and resonance, so vulnerable to the brutal, mechanical efficiency of the corporate hunters. And he saw his own failure, pushing her away, leading to this. "We're running out of options," he said grimly. Just then Lyra's light flared, a sudden, brilliant burst of pure white light that made him gasp. It was a shock after the hours of dimness. The resonant hum surged, not with fear this time, but with a sharp, focused energy he hadn't felt before. "This one," she pulsed, pointing to a large cargo-rated escape pod at the far end of the bay. Her light streamed towards it, intense and targeted. Faint resonance, old, but alive. Rhys didn't question it. He ran towards the indicated pod, Lyra flowing ahead, her white light cutting through the darkness. He reached the pod, found the manual override panel and began working frantically, trying to cycle the external hatch. Lyra flowed around the panel, her light probing the internal conduits, her hum resonating with the dormant systems. He felt her energy working with his, a directed flow of power into the old circuits. The security team burst into the bay. Harsh white beams from their suit lamps cut through the dimness, locking onto Rhys and Lyra. "Freeze corporate security," a voice bellowed, amplified and distorted. Rhys ignored him, wrestling with the recalcitrant hatch mechanism. Lyra's light surged, a desperate wave of energy pouring into the pod systems. He could hear the whine of their weapons powering up, the clicks of safeties being released. "Rhys," Lyra pulsed, a wave of pure fear washing over him. The hatch groaned, then slowly, agonizingly began to swing open. Just as the first energy blast scorched the deck plate near his feet, he scrambled inside the pod. Lyra flowed in behind him, her light contracting as the hatch sealed with a clang. They were inside the escape pod, plunged into darkness except for Lyra's still flaring white light. The resonant hum was immense now, filling the cramped space, a frantic symphony of effort and fear. He felt the surge of power as the pod's ancient systems whirred to life, powered by Lyra's desperate resonance, by the echo of her light-seeking connection, seeking life. "Initiating launch sequence," a synthesized voice announced, startlingly loud in the small space. They were launching into the debris field, without navigation, without knowing if the pod would even survive atmospheric entry, assuming they even reached a planet. It was a gamble, a blind leap into the void, but they were together. And for the first time in a long time, facing certain death, Rhys didn't feel alone. He felt Lyra's light next to him, her resonant energy vibrating through the pod, through his very bones. He had pushed her away, hurt her, but when danger came, she had still reached out, still shared her light to save them. And now, trapped in the darkness with her, hurtling towards an uncertain fate, he knew he wouldn't recoil from her again. The crisis had shattered the remaining walls, leaving nothing but the raw, vibrating edge of their shared existence. The escape pod shuddered violently as it launched, tearing away from the Argus and plunging into the debris field. Warning alarms blared, lights flickered, but the pod systems, boosted by Lyra's desperate resonance, held. Rhys was thrown against the bulkhead, gripping a handrail, trying to make sense of the chaos. Lyra, her light still a brilliant, frantic white, pulsed beside him, her form swaying with the movement of the pod. The resonant hum was a deafening roar of energy and fear. He could hear impacts against the hull, smaller pieces of debris, glancing blows that felt like hammer strikes. The pod wasn't built for this. It was designed for a clean escape into open space, not a high-speed dash through a cosmic junkyard. "Status," he yelled over the noise, though he wasn't sure if Lyra understood the word, or just the urgency in his tone. Her light flickered, sharp blue battling the white. The resonant hum spiked with readings he couldn't interpret but felt like structural stress, system overload. "We are fracturing," she pulsed, her voice strained, the light around her edges shimmering violently. "The hull, resonance, is breaking." He glanced at the diagnostic panel, Alarms were flashing everywhere, hull integrity dropping, life support fluctuating. They weren't going to make it through the field. Can you hold it together?" he asked, shouting. "With your light, your resonance, can you reinforce the hull?" Lyra's light pulsed with uncertainty, then resolve. The white light intensified further, becoming almost blinding. The resonant hum shifted, focusing, becoming a tight, high-pitched whine of incredible power. Her form seemed to expand slightly, pressing against the interior walls of the small pod, her light spreading, flowing into the metal itself. Reese watched in astonishment as her light seemed to weave into the very fabric of the pod, glowing lines appearing on the hull plating, tracing structural points. He felt a surge of energy through his body, a strange sensation of being part of the pod, connected to its failing systems and Lyra's desperate effort. "It is taxing," Lyra pulsed, her light flickering despite its intensity. "It drains my core. I cannot sustain it long." He could feel it too, the immense drain on her energy, the vibration of it resonating with a deep ache in his chest, mirroring her exhaustion. This was costing her everything. "How long?" he asked, his voice tight. "Minutes, maybe less." Minutes. They were still deep in the debris field. Not enough time to get clear. Not like this. He looked at the control panel. Navigation was offline, thrusters barely responsive. But the main drive, maybe, if they could get it online just for a moment, a burst of speed. "Lyra," he said, grabbing her solidified arm, forcing her attention back to him. "The main drive. Can you channel power there, just enough for a jump, a short burst?" Her light pulsed, blues and greens swirling with rapid calculation. The resonant hum shifted, assessing the possibility. "It is possible, but dangerous. Untested connection. It could overload." "We don't have a choice," he yelled. "If we stay here, we're finished. Can you do it?" He met her light gaze, ignoring the chaos around them, the blaring alarms. He saw the fear in her light, the immense risk. But he also saw the trust. She believed he knew a way, however desperate. Lyra's light contracted slightly, pulling back from the hull, gathering her remaining energy. The white light pulsed and narrowed, focusing intensely towards the rear of the pod, towards the dormant drive core. The resonant hum became a single, piercing note of raw power. "Connecting core. To drive," she pulsed, her voice strained, fatting. "Initiating resonance transfer." A jolt, more powerful than any debris impact, ripped through the pod. The lights went out completely, plunging them into absolute darkness, lit only by Lyra's still blinding white light. The resonant hum became a roar, vibrating through his entire body, a raw, overwhelming tide of energy. He felt her light pouring into the drive core, a desperate, all-or-nothing effort. Then a surge. Not a steady propulsion, but a violent, bone-jarring lurch. The pod screamed forward, faster than it had any right to. Debris struck the hull with concussive force, but they were moving, blasting through the field. The surge lasted only moments, maybe 5 seconds, before it cut out just as violently as it began. They were thrown forward, then slammed back against the restraints as the pod tumbled, dead in the water. Silence. Blessed, terrifying silence, broken only by the fatting hum of Lyra's resonance and Reese's ragged breathing. He looked at her. Her light, which had been blinding white moments before, was now dim, flickering, barely visible in the darkness. The intricate patterns within her form were gone, replaced by a weak, unsteady glow. The resonant hum was a faint whisper, trembling on the edge of audibility. "Lyra," he whispered, his voice hoarse. She didn't respond with words. Her form seemed to shrink, becoming less substantial. The precious, dark shard she carried pulsed faintly within her weakened light. He reached out in the darkness, finding her shimmering form. She felt cold, fragile. He pulled her gently towards him, cradling her against his chest. Her light was so weak now, barely enough to see her. The resonant hum was almost gone, a faint, sorrowful vibration against his skin. "You're okay," he murmured, holding her tightly. You did it, we made it through. He could feel her shivering, a tremor running through her light form. He had asked her to do something dangerous, something that could break her, and she had done it for him, for them. The cost was evident in her fading light. The mid-story crisis had struck, not just externally but deep within her, leaving her vulnerable and him terrified. He held the fragile being of light against him in the cold, silent pod, the weight of his responsibility crushing. The bond between them forged in the crucible of near death, raw and terrifyingly real. Reese held Lyra tightly in the dark, silent escape pod. Her light was dangerously dim, a fragile ember against his chest. The resonant hum was barely a whisper, a faint vibration that told him she was still there, still being, but just barely. He could feel the drain on her, the exhaustion that radiated from her weakened form. He didn't know how long they drifted. Hours, maybe. The pod was a tomb, dead systems, cold air. He checked the external viewports, but they were opaque with nebula dust or damaged. No way to tell where they were, if they were clear of the debris field, or if anyone was still pursuing them. All that mattered was Lyra, flickering weakly in his arms. He rubbed her shimmering arm gently. "Lyra, can you hear me?" Her light pulsed faintly, a single, weak flicker. The resonant hum became a tiny, almost inaudible sigh. It felt like a supreme effort for her to respond. "You need to recharge," he whispered, remembering her words on the station. "How? What do you need?" Her light pulsed again, slightly stronger this time, swirling with faint blues and greens. The resonant hum gained a fraction of intensity, carrying a feeling of directed energy. "Resonance," she pulsed, her voice weak, the sound brittle. "Core connection, light, energy, sharing." Sharing, core connection. He knew what that meant. He remembered the jolt, the surge of pure sensation, the mingling of their beings. It had overwhelmed him before, terrified him. But now she was dying, and it was the only thing she mentioned. He looked down at her, the fragile glow against his chest. His fear of being overwhelmed, of being lost in her light, felt trivial now. He had pushed her away, and it had cost her this. He wouldn't do it again. "Okay," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "Okay, Lyra, we'll connect. I'll share my light, whatever that means for me." He shifted his position slightly, settling her more comfortably in his arms. He reached out, gently placing his hands on either side of her shimmering form, over where he imagined her core might be. He closed his eyes, focused inward, trying to understand what it meant for a human, a being without light or resonance in her sense, to share. He thought about the warmth she radiated, the comfort of her hum. He thought about the energy that flowed between them when they touched, the way she had strengthened him, helped him move the bolt, helped him power the escape pod. He focused on that connection, on the feeling of her presence, and willed himself to open something within, something he usually kept locked tight. He focused on his own inner warmth, the slow burn of resilience, the stubborn flicker of hope that had kept him alive through years of hardship. He focused on the quiet strength he drew on, the groundedness of his physical form, and he tried to direct it towards her, a silent offering of his own meager energy, his own kind of light. For a long moment nothing happened. Just the darkness, the cold, and the faint, dying glow of Lyra's light in his arms. Doubt gnawed at him. Was this even possible? Was a human capable of this kind of connection? Then he felt it, a faint vibration originating from within him, echoing the dying hum of her resonance. And Lyra's light pulsed slightly, gaining a fraction of its former strength, swirling with soft, inquisitive greens. The resonant hum deepened, a fraction stronger. It was working. Not a blinding flash, not an overwhelming surge like their first touch, but a slow, gentle exchange. He felt a warmth spread through his chest, emanating outward towards her. He felt a subtle draining of his own energy, a physical weariness setting in, but it was matched by a profound sense of purpose, of giving. And from her he felt a faint return flow, not pure energy, but a complex wave of sensation, of acknowledgement, of gratitude. He held her, breathing with her faint pulses, willing his energy into her weakened form. He didn't know if it was enough, if his human light could sustain a being of pure resonance. But he would try. He would give her everything he had. The escape pod drifted through the void, a tiny bubble of fragile life, illuminated only by the faint, mingling glow of alien and human light, their cores connected in a desperate, intimate dance of survival. The fear was still there, the uncertainty, but beneath it pulsed a new, unexpected warmth, the quiet strength of a bond forged in the deepest darkness. Reese held Lyra, focusing all his intention on sustaining the connection, on sharing his energy. It was a slow, subtle process, draining him physically but filling him with a quiet resolve. Her light remained dim, but it was no longer flickering on the verge of extinguishing. It held steady, a soft indigo with faint swirls of green, the resonant hum a low, steady thrum against his skin. He felt her slowly, painstakingly, drawing strength from him, from the connection between their cores. Hours passed like this, or maybe cycles. Time was a blur in the darkness of the pod. His limbs ached, his eyes were heavy, but he didn't dare break the connection. He kept his hands on her, pouring his warmth into her, focusing on the bond that hummed between them. Slowly, incrementally, Lyra's light began to brighten. The indigo deepened, the greens became more vibrant. The resonant hum gained strength, becoming a clearer, more resonant tone. He felt the draining on his own energy lessen, replaced by a strange feeling of equilibrium. It was as if, once their cores were connected, a more efficient, reciprocal exchange was possible. "Reese," Lyra pulsed, her voice stronger now, though still soft. Her light was bright enough now to illuminate his face in the dim pod. The patterns within her form were starting to re-emerge, faint but visible. "Lyra, you're stabilizing." Her light pulsed with weary relief. "Yes, your light. It is different, not the resonance, but strong, sustaining." His human light. It wasn't her kind of energy, but it worked. It could nourish her. The thought was both humbling and strangely empowering. "Good," he said, the single word heavy with exhaustion and emotion. "Just keep doing what you're doing, rest." He continued to hold her, the connection humming between them, a quiet symphony of shared energy. He felt her deep exhaustion, but also a growing sense of peace, of safety. Now that she was connected, no longer adrift in the silent, painful disconnection of her own fading light. After a while, Lyra's resonant hum shifted, deepening, slowing. Her light softened to a gentle, steady gold. It felt like sleep, a deep, resonant sleep anchored to him, to their connection. He stayed like that for what felt like an eternity, holding the sleeping being of light in his arms, the only source of warmth and light in the cold, dark pod. He was exhausted, physically and emotionally drained, but a profound sense of peace settled over him. He had faced his fear of being overwhelmed, of losing himself in her alien nature, and found not dissolution, but connection. A different kind of connection than she shared with her own kind, perhaps, but a real one. A bond forged in shared danger and mutual need, solidified by the act of giving his own light to save her. Eventually, he must have drifted off to sleep himself, still holding her, their cores linked in the silent darkness. He woke to a faint light filtering into the pod. External viewports were clear. They were adrift in open space, the Veil Nebula a distant, ethereal swirl of color, and Lyra was stirring in his arms. Her light was brighter now, vibrant with deep blues and greens, the gold of rest still lingering at the edges. The resonant hum was strong and steady, a comforting presence that filled the small space. She wasn't fully recovered. He could feel the lingering exhaustion, but she was stable. She stirred, her solidified form shifting. She pulled back slightly, looking up at him, her light gaze intense. "You stayed," she pulsed, her voice clear. "You shared for so long." "Yeah," he said, his voice rough with sleep and emotion. "Wouldn't leave you." Lyra's light pulsed with a wave of profound emotion, gratitude, wonder, something akin to awe. Then, slowly, she reached up with her shimmering hand, her solidified fingers gently tracing the lines of exhaustion on his face. The touch was different this time. Not an overwhelming surge, but a soft, warm flow. He felt the familiar buzz of their cores connecting, but it was tempered, gentle. He felt her sending him not just energy, but something else: comfort, acceptance, a deep, resonant sense of belonging. It was incredibly intimate, this silent, physical conversation between their cores. "You are not just physical, Reese," she pulsed softly, her light shimmering with discovery. "You have a deep resonance, a light. It is magnificent, it is yours. It did not consume you." He hadn't been consumed. He was still himself, tired and bruised, but more open, more connected than he had ever been. He looked at Lyra, vibrant and beautiful in her alien light, and knew that his life had irrevocably changed. The bond between them, forged in the crucible of their shared vulnerability, was a lifeline in the vast, isolating darkness of the void. They were still stranded, still in danger from the corporate patrols. But they were together. And in the quiet hum of her resonance, in the steady glow of her light, Reese found a sense of peace he hadn't thought possible. Their survival was uncertain, their future unknown, but they would face it together, two disparate beings, human and light, bound by a connection that defied understanding, orbiting each other in the silence of space, their shared light a tiny beacon in the darkness. Their journey wasn't over, it was just beginning. Lyra slowly drew back her hand, the faint warmth lingering on his face. Her light was a steady, comforting presence in the dim pod. The resonant hum settled into a low, rhythmic thrum that felt like a shared heartbeat. He could feel her energy returning, slowly replenishing itself, no longer just taking from him but vibrating with its own internal strength, anchored to his by the connection they had forged. "Where are we?" she pulsed, her voice still soft but clear. Reese peered out the viewport again, though it was still mostly opaque. "Hard to tell. We came out of the field somewhere. Could be anywhere in this sector. We're dead in the water without propulsion." Lyra pulsed with thoughtful blues and greens. "The pod has some basic systems. Life support, comm. Basic life support is holding, thanks to you," Reese said, gesturing to the flickering console lights. "Comms, maybe. Short range only, probably. Not enough to signal anyone friendly, assuming there are any out here." "The resonance vessel," Lyra pulsed, holding the dark shard within her light form. It pulsed faintly now, a soft echo of her returning strength. "It has residual energy from our connection, and from the core transfer. Not enough for travel, but for communication." Reese looked at the shard, then at her. Could that artifact, whatever it was, function as a comms device, or amplify the pod's signal? It was a long shot, but it was their only shot. "Maybe," he said, hope stirring in his chest. "Worth a try. Can you connect it to the comms panel safely?" Lyra's light pulsed with determination. "I believe so. Our cores are now attuned. The resonance can work with your technology, guided by our shared frequency." Guided by their shared frequency. The words resonated with him, a deep understanding clicking into place. Their bond wasn't just emotional or energetic. It had created a new kind of connection, a bridge between their disparate natures. He pulled himself over to the comms panel, a battered piece of equipment that looked half-melted. Lyra flowed beside him, her light focused, her resonant hum shifting as she analyzed the panel's internal structure. "This port," she pulsed, pointing with a thin beam of light. "It connects to the external antenna, if the antenna is intact." "Big if," Reese muttered. But he opened the panel cover, revealing a tangled mess of wires and burnt circuits. Lyra extended several tendrils of light, delicate and precise, flowing into the circuitry. Her light pulsed and shifted, blues and greens working with focused intensity. He watched, fascinated, as her pure energy interacted with the physical technology, her resonant hum guiding the flow, bypassing damaged components, creating pathways where none existed. He felt the familiar hum of their connection, the sense of their cores being attuned. It wasn't just Lyra working. It felt like he was part of it, his own focused intent, his own understanding of the technology, somehow guiding her alien energy. It was a true collaboration, a merging of human ingenuity and alien resonance. After several minutes, Lyra's light pulsed with a sense of completion. The resonant hum settled into a steady, low frequency. Connected, she pulsed, withdrawing her light tendrils. The vessel is a focal point, amplifies the signal, using residual core energy. Reese looked at the comms panel. Miraculously, a faint, reddy light was now blinking. He powered up the ancient system, his hands shaking slightly. "Trying a distress signal," he said, adjusting the frequency to standard long-range channels used by independent pilots. "Low power burst, might reach someone, might draw unwanted attention." "We are already adrift," Lyra pulsed, her light steady. "Better to be found than to fade alone." He nodded. He inputted the standard distress codes and a brief message identifying the pod and their rough location, an estimate based on their launch direction and time. He hit the transmit button. A weak signal pulsed out into the void. It felt ridiculously small, insignificant, against the vastness of space. They waited. Silence returned, broken only by the pod's life support and Lyra's constant, comforting hum. He held her hand again, the solidified light warm and reassuring. He felt her presence, her quiet strength, her deep connection to him. Minutes stretched into an hour. Hope began to dwindle. Maybe the antenna was too damaged. Maybe the signal was too weak. Maybe there was no one out here to hear. Then a faint beep from the comms panel. Inbound signal. Reese straightened, his heart leaping into his throat. "Lyra, signal, someone heard." Her light flared with sudden, joyous gold and emerald green. The resonant hum lifted, a wave of pure relief and triumph washing over him. The signal resolved into audio, rough, crackling but human. "Distress signal received. Identify yourself. Pod designation. Are you combatants or civilians?" Reese grabbed the microphone. "Pod designation unknown. Survivors. Civilian. Repeat, civilian. Our vessel is disabled, requesting immediate assistance." Silence again. Tension stretched taut. Had they believed him? Would they help? Or were they corporate security just waiting to pinpoint them? "All right, civilian pod," the voice crackled back. "Hold your position. Send your transponder code if able. We're charting a course. ETA, 3 cycles. 3 cycles. It was a long wait, but it was hope. Real, tangible hope. Reese slumped back, exhaling slowly. He met Lyra's light gaze. Her light was vibrant now, shimmering with relief and gratitude. The resonant hum was a symphony of quiet joy. "Someone's coming," he said, a tired smile touching his lips. Lyra flowed closer, her light softening, swirling with deep blues and purples. The resonant hum deepened, becoming intimate, inviting. She reached out, not with a hand of light, but flowing her entire solidified form closer, pressing against his side. He wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. He felt the full force of her presence now, anchored by the stable connection between their cores. The warmth was intense, flooding his side, spreading through his chest. The resonant hum vibrated deep within him, a profound sense of peace and belonging. It wasn't overwhelming this time, not terrifying. It was simply everything. The most real, most intimate connection he had ever known. "Thank you, Reese," she pulsed softly, her form molding against his. "For the light, for the connection, for staying." "Thank you, Lyra," he whispered back, holding her tightly, "for showing me mine." They stayed like that, huddled together in the cold, dead pod, waiting for rescue. The future was uncertain, the threats weren't gone, but they faced it together. Human and alien, light and warmth, their cores intertwined, their shared frequency a beacon in the vast, silent dark.